Yeah, get chopped, van. Get chopped. Suzuki power. This bike's basically a jigsaw. What is going on, boys and girls? It is your boy Temporary Citizen, and today I am riding a Suzuki Tu250x. Let's jump on. Alright. So, this here, Suzuki Tu250x, with a flat tyre. So I need to geo pump that up a little bit because that is dodgy as fuck. And it's got a learner plate as well, so that's cool. Alright, so flat-ish tyre aside, this is the Suzuki Tu250x. Now, couple of fun little tidbits about this bike. It is, here in South Australia at least, now this is a learner legal bike. Obviously it's a 250, not a race bike. In South Australia, when you get your license, you've got to go do a 2 half-day course where they teach you how to ride a motorcycle. Now, this is one of the, well, when I did anyway, this is one of the 3 bikes that they offer to do your course on. So there's this, there's a CB125 and a WR250. And I remember doing my license and seeing this and going, oh, why the hell would you do it on a cruiser? That's so dumb. But I'm going to be honest, I was not super knowledgeable about bikes that weren't Ninja 250s at that point in time. Full disclosure. So yeah, so this is one of the bikes, and obviously now that I've actually ridden bikes, I could see why this would be an easy enough bike for a learner course. I mean, it's a naked, upright, less sporty bike that, you know, handles pretty nicely. So few things about this bike. Well, number one, they are quite cheap, which is always something that is important for a learner bike. Well, not always. I mean, some people can afford MT-07s, but, you know, when I first started riding bikes, I definitely could not. So something like this, especially for a uni student like the owner is a very handy thing to do, to have, because it's very cost efficient, and also it's got a little bit of hipster styling to it, which, you know, this day and age is a pretty cool thing to have. Not quite as cool as this, but I feel like I'm actually a learner again. Alright, so how's that takeoff? It has got sweet fuck all. Got chopped by a Mazda 6 just there. Oh. It's not like I wasn't pinning it either. So let's be realistic about it, right? It's 140 kilos, the bike. It's got 16 horsepower. So it is not gonna win a whole lot of races, even the cafe variety. That being said, it you know, it's got the right sort of base for, you know, a cheap little cafe racer build. You know, that's sort of what Joey, the guy whose bike this is, had in mind, was sort of like a cheap cafe racer bike. He's done a little bit with it. He's put some bar and mirrors on that look a lot tidier than any of the ones I've ever had. He's taken off the rear passenger seat, and I think that's about it. But there's a little bit to tidy up the looks of it, that's for sure. But I'll put some air in the tyre and we'll go do a couple of laps of the hills and see how she turns. Alrighty, so we've got a little bit of air in the tyres now. Now while we're looking at the bike, seat looks pretty comfy. Single drum disc on the back wheel, which is a bit iffy. And you've got a single disc brake on the front. Now it's got a 250cc single engine. Like I said, not making waves of power, but feels a little bit nicer with some air in the tyre. So hopefully Joseph appreciates that. Hit me up on r/nice guys. Oh, power! Now, other learner specific things. It doesn't have a tachometer on it, which, you know, like it's a very cheap minimal bike. That's not really the point, but probably a handy thing to have as a learner. These brakes do not give waves of confidence. So let's start off with comfort. Now, as you can see here, my knees are right up by the tank, but with that seat, it's actually quite comfortable, especially compared to some of the early bikes that I had. Oh, that brake's working hard. I've definitely had a lot less comfortable bikes in my time. You know, it's only done 10,000 Ks. This baby's brand new. But yeah, so you got to work it a bit, which is, I mean, a good thing as a learner. If you're very fresh and you're not overly confident, a bike where you've got to work it a bit to get that power is not the worst thing in the world. When you've been riding a little bit longer, it can get a little bit annoying, but at the same time, you know, you can really feel like you're giving it the beans and not break any speed limits, which, you know, that's not something that happens on big boy bikes. You feather it out of idle and then you're doing the speed limit. You go, well, that's as fast as I can go. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to be able to work through. Probably not super fun through the hills, but we'll see. Now, another tasteful addition is this little clock here. It's not the right time whatsoever. It's not 1:15 midnight and the battery doesn't work. But handy thing nonetheless. I hate not having a clock on bikes. Alright, those brakes. I am definitely used to twins up the front. You know? What else we got? We got a little master cylinder. It is very sparse up the front here, which, you know, if you're looking at doing a sort of cafe style bike, is not the worst thing. Because, you know, you want that sort of clean cafe-ish look. The handlebars do look almost a little clubman style, and I like the bar ends on the side, so looks-wise this bike's pretty cool. It's not like cool, but, you know, it's an acquired taste, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of work to make it like a cool little cafe racer. I mean, it's still got the pumpkin indicators and the back's very messy, but, you know, it's got the twin, like, old school shocks, which is the same thing that the CB had, which, you know, is very good for comfort, not amazing for performance, but not a performance bike, so that's something you've got to remember when you're riding it. Not everything is intended to be the fastest bike in the world. The same criticism I had with the R3 that made people lose their minds, but it's, you know, it's limited by power. That's just what happens with a smaller engine. Something like this is also especially great if you are a very light person, a very small person, because it's quite low. I mean, you can see how bent my knees are. Whereas like even something like the R3 is like a little bit higher up, but this has got a very low seating position, which is great for short people. Doesn't really affect me, but, you know, I'm sure anyone under 6'7" would probably appreciate the bike being a little bit shorter. Yeah, another thing, you probably really wouldn't have to worry too much about the bike being a target for theft, if we're going to be honest. I don't think Suzuki Tu250x's are overly high black market value. So, you know, that's another positive. Gotta look at all the little things. So you've got some, I think these are the stock pipes on it. You can't really hear, I mean, you won't be able to hear anything at all. Oh my god, it's not heavy enough to set off the sensor. Well, I'm going that way. Oh. That is a problem that I've not experienced in quite a long time. Now, when I say not heavy enough to set off the sensor, I am aware that they're not weight-based. However, the block of metal for the engine is not big enough to create enough resistance to set off the interference plates that set off traffic lights. So that is something else that you have to realise about a bike like this. With a small engine, occasionally you won't set off traffic lights. That is an unfortunate reality with some small bikes. Alrighty. Let's bloody fang her out. 80k zone here so we can give it a little bit. We'll see how she goes up a hill and down a hill and around a hill. But you've got to say, having inflated tyres definitely helps performance. Funnily enough. We'll feel the performance anyway. I mean, it's hard to actually test performance in this situation. Testing performance is not hard. So it sits at 80 with a hunt. So I'm 6'7", 100 kilos, sits at 80 just fine, which is a big step up for bikes that are in the 150 range. You know, they struggle. Now I'll see how it goes up the hill, but I'm feeling pretty confident that it won't have an issue hitting 80 up the hill with a run-up. I remember riding my first 250 and it was such a huge step up from my 125. I was like, god damn it, I'm fast. I wasn't. It wasn't. And I wasn't, but it's a VTR 250, so more of a sportier version, similar sort of deal. So that's full pin hitting 80k's. It's not really, it'd take a while to wind up faster than 80 up a hill. You don't really have to worry about any speeding fines. Obviously, the lighter you are, the faster it'll accelerate with the same power output because of physics. Doesn't really affect the top speed, just the acceleration. Now, it also doesn't feel overly torquey. I'm not expecting it to, just another observation. Don't buy this bike and think that you'll be able to flog race cars because you're on a motorbike. Right? There are limitations in life. You know, that's just the way it is. But if you're happy to have a cheap bike, because these things are pretty cheap. I mean, the Rider Safe place sell theirs quite frequently because I think this one's an ex-Rider Safe one. You know, because they have to upgrade their bikes every few years, so you can get a pretty well maintained. Obviously, it's ridden by people that don't know how to ride. But at least, you know, it's not owned by people that don't know how to maintain a bike, which is the other half of the learner coin. I mean, I have a sweet FA knowledge in maintenance. I'm super slack with chain adjusting and lubrication, or anything else for that matter. I've done some stuff, but you know, I'm not trying to fool anyone. I'm going to give you unrealistic expectations of temp sits. Yeah, cruises on 80 pretty nicely. If you pin it, you can get, there's a little bit of a downhill here, but you can hit 100 k's an hour, you know, which is important. There's 100 k's is about the speed limit in this state. There's a few 110k roads, but you know, probably not going to take this on huge roads. Now, it is. It's probably cheap. One of these is probably cheaper than a Grom. It's a little less Gromish, you know. I don't think people looking at buying at a Grom are really looking at buying a Suzuki Tu250x, Tu250x. You know, they're different markets. This one would obviously appeal to the poor hipster market, which, you know, a lot of uni students. There's a lot of poor hipsters that are uni students. That's just the way it goes. Now, this, for being how naked it is and everything else, and the riding position, it doesn't feel overly unconfident through these corners. And I think it's because you got a lot of stability with those twin, like, retro shocks on the back. The rear of the bike sort of sits in a little bit, especially if you've got a bit of weight behind you. And so it doesn't feel overly skittish or uneasy, given how light the bike is, which is very impressive. You know, because whilst light and skittish helps you manoeuvre quicker, probably not what you want as a learner. You compare it to an MT-07, lots of power, but that thing just feels a lot lighter going through corners, which means you can go faster through corners. But if you're still learning how to ride, you don't have the confidence for that to be an appealing thing. You know, whereas this is sort of, this will baby you into a bigger bike, whereas something like an MT-07 or a more powerful sports bike, you sort of get with the program real quick. Right, let's see how she goes at braking here. See that, like, it's not like it's bad braking. I mean, it's adequate, but it's not, you know. It's not the be-all and end-all of braking power, funnily enough. So yeah, I mean, you saw that 0 to 80 time there. That was fairly flattish, fairly reasonable of what you're going to be doing in a day-to-day scenario. Especially if you're learning how to ride. Doing easy hills like this is something very common. I mean, the bike, pretty good value for money. Honestly, I would much rather something like this than that CF motor I first started on. Don't think you'd have a whole lot of difference price-wise, because this is not an overly sought-after bike, so I can't see your resale being through the roof on something like this. They have a very dedicated community of fans, but I mean, every bike does. And there's a lot of people that will tell you why this is the best learner bike. And it honestly depends. I mean, it all comes down to the individual person. That's the issue. But if you don't have a lot of money, you want something cheap because you're going to uni or you're commuting or anything else, you want something that's going to be pretty reliable. I mean, it does have fuel injection, so that's nice. You know, something that's cheap, reliable, easy to learn on, isn't going to use bugger all fuel, you know, and it doesn't look trash. I mean, if you like the style, you like the style. If you don't, you don't. There'd be a lot of people that go, oh, that's an ugly bike. I suffer from something where I find almost every motorcycle appealing. So that it basically comes down to you. If you're looking at this video for this bike, you're probably looking for me to sell you on it, and I'm going to say, yes, lock it in. Good idea. If this is the bike you want, good idea. You know, it's obviously hitting the price point and the style-wise and your own perceptions of ability and the riding style you're going to do. If you're going to be hitting learner track days or hitting the hills all weekend, every weekend, or all day, every day, probably not the bike for you. But you would probably be looking at something like a... And if you're looking for this power, you'd probably be looking like this sort of engine size. You'd probably be looking more R3, Ninja 400, that sort of market. They're also a shitload more money, so that's something you'd have to weigh up as well. But, you know, you wouldn't... This is by no means as fast as those bikes. They have bigger engines and are more aimed for that style of riding. But it's not like you would be left... They wouldn't be waiting hours for you to catch up, you know. It's not that far behind in terms of power that, you know, they're going to get there a day before you. They're not crazy sports bikes either. So if you're worried about being able to keep up with your friends, if you can learn how to smash corners on something like this, then you're going to do better than someone that's got a faster bike that doesn't know how to hit corners. That's the... I mean, I remember my first time going through the hills, I was on a Ninja 650, Hyosung 650. You know, it was unrestricted and fully powered and not an unpowerful bike. I was getting absolutely smoked by someone on a Ninja 300 because he knew how to take corners and I didn't. So, you know, I probably had twice the power that he did. And yet, he was absolutely killing me. Because I could only catch him on straight, so I had no idea what I was doing. So, you know, they say the biggest mod you can make to a bike is rider skill. And there's a reason that a lot of people say stuff like that. Oh yeah, watch out, Butch. Wow. Wow. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed my video. Hopefully this sold you on this bike or swayed you off if you weren't really that interested and you want something faster and more powerful. Hopefully it works for you. But these are just the musings of temp sits, so take them how you will. I will catch you guys in the next one. Make sure you leave a comment and let me know what else you'd like to see me ride and review, and give me some more bikes to ride and review because I need to make content. But on that note, peace!